Well, hello, everybody. We have a two-man show, but it's too many things to talk about today. We're going to get to a lot of that, and more if you join us here on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast.
Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really need that Big Gold Belt.
Good evening, boys and girls, men and ladies, children of all ages, whatever you want to say. I'm your boy Silly here, and we're here to talk about a lot of things. It's me and my boy, the Giant Crab Jamal here, represent the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. Have a two-man show, but like I said in the opening, it's too many things to talk about. Of course, you could check us out on YouTube, Twitch, X, whatever you can find us, but we're here live today. I'm just going to be talking about wrestling, of course, some big news that dropped today. But first, Crab, how are you feeling today?
I'm conflicted. A lot of different things going on that we'll get into. Obviously, we have some breaking news today, but in general, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
And let's get right to it. So, if you haven't already heard, now today we have our third celebrity that passed away within the last 3 days. Malcolm Jamal Warner on Tuesday from Costa Rica for that accident. And we have Ozzy Osbourne passed away on yesterday. And now in the wrestling community, and a huge icon in acting, whether if you liked him, loved him, or hated him. He was somebody that was huge to this empire and this industry. And I'm talking about Hulk Hogan, as you know, has passed away at the age of 71 due to a cardiac event. I think it's still some details that's going to come around on that. So once again, for all the families of celebrities, or if you're dealing with a personal death in your family, we want just to send our wishes to you. We want to send the wishes to each one of the celebrities this week. But because we are a wrestling show, we definitely want to make sure we give tribute to, or just give a discussion to Hulk Hogan today. And just good evening. Cupcake, you're on today. Good evening to you. My guy, and definitely we'll look forward to hearing your comments if you have something that you want to share based on the information we're sharing today. But Crab, I'm gonna lean it to you. Hulk Hogan was somebody that was definitely good, bad, and different, a part of the wrestling community, things in and outside of the wrestling business. Just a lot of stories that dealt with him. And like you said in the opening, you're conflicted. What is your overall feeling just hearing the news, and how does this impact the wrestling community today with Hulk Hogan passing?
Well, so that's where the conflict comes in. If we didn't hear the illegally gotten tape where Hulk Hogan said some things that he definitely, should not have said, even though this tape was secretly recorded in the privacy of his own home, and so he assumed.
Yep.
And it's hard to separate the art for the artist. But that's kind of where we are. Yeah, that's the world we live in now, where even though you're Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea says some pretty shitty things, even though he was unknowingly recorded saying them.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point do we separate the two? At what point do we converge the two? Does it matter? Does any of it matter? Does past transgressions outweigh past triumphs? These are kind of the things that we, have. These are the questions that need to be asked and answered when we're kind of summarizing a person's life. Now, the long and short of it is that nobody's perfect. There isn't a single person except Stephanie McMahon. You're welcome, but there's nobody really perfect, and there isn't a reason to believe that you shouldn't meet your heroes, but you also shouldn't have these lofty expectations and goals of them.
Yep.
So that's where it is for me. I really don't know how to feel about this, because realistically, in as a fan of wrestling since I was a kid, all them years ago, Hulk Hogan was there before me.
Yep.
Yep. So, he debuted in like 78, 79, and I wasn't even born yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so for so many generations, like 30, 40 straight years of being at or near the top, not just in America, not just in the territories, not just in WWF, but in Japan and in Europe in a smaller way, it's like you can't overlook that magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't too many guys, there aren't too many wrestlers, men or women, that resonate with so many different generations, period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, there are people that are big in Japan. There are people that are big in Europe. There are people that are big, but there are very few that are like worldwide recognizable and famous, and that should be applauded. Also, Terry Bollea was a redneck from Central Florida that said some shit that he really didn't want to say,
Mm-hmm.
that he said in private that he really should have said out loud, and it is what it is. So what do we do with that?
So let's break it down this way. So you definitely conflicted for sure. You hit so many highlights, inside, outside, as I mentioned. But let's talk about his in-ring stuff first.
Okay.
So when we talk about who he is as a wrestler, somebody that is, I can say, was an icon of the 80s. What he did in the ring kind of set the trend of what you see future wrestlers do, like a John Cena, like a Rock. You become a superstar in the wrestling industry, which led to movies and things of that nature, which he played some, iconic characters in the ring. He played some memorable characters outside the ring that tried to bring out a personality that fed to families, that showed how wrestling can transcend into be a megastar. He's arguably somebody that had the biggest reaction when you talk about his heel turn and starting the faction of the NWO, which of course is multiple tiers to that led to that. He's somebody that was like the all-American hero, where, when you think about some of the stuff he did in the 80s against, Andre the Giant or the Ultimate Warrior, about how he just set up, how you book a megastar in the ring. He's definitely have a lot of accolades. Now, once again, there is some behind the scenes issues with that. Was that he want too much creative control and things of that nature. In the in-ring wrestling perspective, does he go down on the Mount Rushmore? Do you still have to figure out that he's a great all-time for that? Just in the ring only, where would you say he lands at? What?
Oh, hell no. I mean, no, hey, no, not even close. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I can absolutely recognize and appreciate the multi-generational magnitude that Hulk Hogan has on the masses.
Yep.
And his impact on North American wrestling, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
He is not in my top 100, let alone Mount Rushmore.
I thought I was the only one, so I'm glad you agree.
Oh, hell no.
I thought I was the only one.
Close.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't represent the style of wrestling that I like, never has, never will. Mm-hmm. And if you were to argue that, Hulk Hogan is the prototype for the top of the top for WWE,
yep,
I would argue, well, that's kind of bullshit, because there were guys before him that, like Bruno Sammartino, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, that were, guys that were before him, that were arguably the prototype. And then, of course, you are only as good as the people that you are around. And in that golden age of the 80s territories in WWF, because he's in the company of Luger, Sting, Macho Man, Warrior, Demolition, the guys over there in Japan, Inoki, and all of that, Jumbo, and stuff. Because of that, these people also made each better. Iron sharpens iron. So he's definitely does not exist in a vacuum. And I'm not saying that there isn't some 50-year-old right now that's bawling his eyes out with the last of the little Stretch Armstrong, Hulk Hogan dolls.
Brings back the childhood for sure.
I'm not saying that somebody isn't like in their Hulk Hogan race car bed at 58 years old, about to watch Suburban Commando for the last time, and just be a puddle of emotion. Yeah. Sure. But we're just talking about the wrestling. And as a wrestler, Hulk Hogan was the antithesis of what Hulk Hogan as a kid, and people of that wrestling style. Mm-hmm. His finishing move was a leg drop.
That's it.
Fuck. So that of that style made me appreciate the more, for lack of a better word, athletic, but the more technically proficient wrestlers, which is why I love the luchadors, which is why
that's your style. That's up your alley.
Which is why I love guys like Ultimo Dragon.
Yes.
Which is why I love later on Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero, Chavo, Benoit, and hell, Perry Saturn. Shout out to Perry Saturn. Love Mr. Perfect and stuff like that because they were not the type of wrestler that Hulk Hogan was.
Yep.
And however, that's my personal taste. It would be ignorant of me to disavow the fact that WWE had like a 20-year mold of what they wanted their top wrestler to be and look like. And if you start in like the mid to late 50s and then you move into the 60s, they kind of fit this mold, this virtual Superman like mold, 6 foot ish, 6'4", built like a brick shit house, and fresh face, clean cut, usually, just Goliath of a man. Was the WWE superstar champion archetype. Now you fast forward 40 years and you go, Daniel Bryan, who the hell is this guy? This guy is, 5'11" and a half and 165 soaking wet.
If that.
Exactly. So my point is that because WWE has this strong archetype of how to build a champion, no matter what shape they come in, whether it's Roman Reigns or Lesnar or The Rock or Hogan or Austin or Triple H, or even the ones that didn't work out, like Snitsky, like John Heidenreich. These were the guys that fit that mold, and they didn't. I was going to say Cena, but Cena also fits that mold.
Yep.
If you put up a picture of these guys, starting from like Bruno Sammartino on down of like their most prolific champions, WWE has a look. They definitely has a look and a style, and Hulk Hogan is absolutely a part of that, but certainly not the begin or end of that at all.
It's like you have a type when you're dating somebody, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we know that Vince loves a big, beefy, blonde boy. We know that Vince loves that. Vince just absolutely. We know his type. Yes. But with that said, though, it is what it is, and it obviously worked for them, and it still continues to work for them. However, I'm just saying, like, just in general, the legacy of Hulk Hogan is something that few, and I really do mean few, less than 10, in all of North American wrestling, is a level that people like will reach. Because as a child of the 90s, wrestling fan of the 90s, unfortunately, we've had way too many legends, heroes, go too soon. For whatever reason, drugs. For any other reason, steroids. But for one reason or another, drugs and steroids. They are gone way too soon. Yeah. And it's a goddamn shame. Yeah. However, today, because this happened yesterday and the news broke today, this feels fundamentally different. And I think that's kind of what makes Hogan stand out. Also, and to be fair, because we're not burying wrestlers, like legendary wrestlers once a month anymore. Yep. It also feels kind of sudden. Like Hogan and Bischoff were going to do that show, the freestyle wrestling show in Cleveland in about a month. For whatever, for better or worse. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Hogan has made appearances and stuff like that. He was still, had a schedule, and you can't say he wasn't relevant. His shtick is 40 years old, but God damn it, it's still over with a particular.
It had a reaction. Always has a reaction, positive or negative. Always has a reaction.
Exactly. So, so it is what it is. But it's as that. But that, like, I don't know too many stars of wrestling where that level of longevity will like precede them.
And just speaking on that, let me get a couple of comments from Cupcake here. Just on your mention, you also have to mention Bob Backlund and Tony Atlas that kind of fit in that similar mode. I know Absolutely. Tony Atlas, just had his was it the Dark Side of the Ring moment, where that story was very good. And then he also mentioned, well, Mr. Perfect, he has that shirt, but he also mentioned something here. I want to get your take on, Crab. He was at WrestleMania 7 with Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior. And like you said, his finisher was just a leg drop, but it was more of that character build of him being a superhero in the ring. Is there a particular match or moment that you say, as a wrestling fan, okay, this is legit? Hulk Hogan had this wrestle. Was it the match against The Rock? Or was it, what would you say?
Well, I was at WrestleMania 21. That was my first WrestleMania, and that was Hogan versus Cena, maybe? I forget. But either way, it was for me, I can understand the historical context of it, even though Hogan and his style of wrestling is nowhere near my favorite.
Yeah.
However, again, it would be hard to ignore the outpour of emotion from people, whether they are casual fans, whether they know of wrestling, whether they are big time super fans, or whatever, anywhere in between. It would be hard to ignore and not acknowledge that. It's not about me, because if it were about me, we probably would mention it and move on.
Yeah.
But it's something, it is historic. And we have to acknowledge the history of it, that one of the biggest names ever in professional wrestling in North America, ever, full stop, regardless of what I think of him, regardless of how you feel that his matches went, regardless of whether his stupid ass leg drop is one of the greatest finishers of all time, or anything like that. Whether or not you think that he's a great, actor or whatever, somehow this feels different than when Roddy Piper passed. This feels different than Andre the Giant. This feels different than when we thought Ric Flair died in the ring. This feels different than, Guerrero. This feels different than a lot of guys, even
Mr. Perfect.
Even Mr. Perfect. That this feels really, different, where you can feel like this is one of those moments where I officially recognize that I'm old. Like, damn, Hulk Hogan died at 71. Hulk Hogan is literally 3 days younger than my mother. And why do you agree like you would know that?
No, I'm just saying, because we're at that age now. It's
but we're at that age. And, his birthday is August 11th, same year as my mother. And I'm actually thinking about, hey, well, mom's going to be 72 this year. What are we going to get her? What are we going to do? What the family and I, what are we going to do? And it's just like, damn, Hulk Hogan was 3 days younger than her, and he dies of a heart attack, suddenly or not. The point is that you kind of that has weight, and it feels, like that. And then also, to be fair, Hogan did step away from wrestling in a major way over the past 5-10 years or so, versus a guy like Flair, who was always relevant in wrestling to a better or worse degree. Okay, Flair, go away. No, he will not go away. He will die in the ring if he has his choice. And of course, even still, the things that I remember most about Hogan, whether it was the formation of the NWO or the Mega Powers or whatever, these things are all 25 years old plus now. And then once you start realizing, watching bootleg Japanese tapes from All Japan, we traded them in middle school, well, yeah, that was goddamn near 30 years ago. So it kind of comes together full circle, and you really, really encapsulate his life and career and your own as well, because there are certain things that you remember, what happened, or you go, well, I wasn't born yet when this happened, but this is such an amazing moment, Hogan slamming Andre, for example, that I was barely around when that happened, but that's one of those moments that you've got to go back and look at to get the history. And I think for people of a certain age, this is a monumental loss. Now, this is the question. and this is the question to you guys out there. Because our heroes, our legends, our superstars are more accessible than ever, when they commit a transgression, how does that weigh in to how you feel about them when they eventually pass on? And I'm not talking about somebody that's like should be thrown under the jail, like a Diddy, Bill Cosby, Epstein, or what's the guy, Harvey Weinstein, or R. Kelly, or something like that. But just like a guy that you go, you know what? That's this particular stance that they have, and I wish I didn't know so much about this person personally, or damn, I wish they aligned with my political views, or or something like that. I really idolize this person based on the character that they portray, and then I realized that they don't live the gimmick. How does that factor into how we memorialize people? Because realistically, yes, Hogan, and then you start looking at the list, because well, when do we plan for Luger? When do we plan for Flair? When do we plan for Mick Foley, who's still hobbling around? When do we plan for Sting and stuff like that? And it's obviously not a morbid, it is a morbid thing to do, but once you realize that you're old and they're older than you, it's like, well, shit, who's left?
Yeah. And just to even add on that, I know I've seen a lot of memes and internet, I would say creativity, just to show some type of respect, positive and negative. And it's been all across the board, because like you said, if you have somebody that has had some transgressions or mistakes in their life, you never want to say, okay, that's going to be the top of the list, what I remember them for when they pass, because you always want to remember the positivity of what they did and how they lived their life on earth, or the effect they have on people. So like when I can describe, I've seen some internet memes as much as Macho Man and Scott Hall on the gates of heaven, bringing them in the Hulk, saying, hey, man, now you can come join us. Now we can wrestle again. Versus, I literally saw this about an hour ago. It was like a picture of a Hell in a Cell match between Hulk Hogan and Chris Benoit. And it's like, it's just so wide range of just feedback that people have. And I think that is a great question. I would say for me, if I was to answer it, and those of you that's in the chat, definitely put your comments on it too. I think regardless of what people do on this earth, you still have to learn how to forgive in certain things, rather if it's certain things that he said, will you forgive them? Certain things that he did, will you forgive them? Because all of us have, I guess, skeletons that you would say that we do in our dark, but when they come to light, that's when the court of public opinion always, ostracize it or make it seem like, hey, this person's like this in private, then why are we supporting them? And everybody makes their mistakes. But it's just so hard because, like you said, at this point where we are in our lives, and then you made the reference to your mom just being close nation mom, it's like, this is the fact that we're getting old. And the next thing you're going to know is like more people are going to be passing, because we can't cheat death. We can't cheat taxes and everything. But when it comes to just experiencing what it is to say, this person's not on earth anymore, we're never going to see them on TV anymore, we're never going to see them live, we're never even going to shake their hand, or if you're really close to them, give them a hug. That hurts in the type of way where you just can't, just say mean stuff or just flat out rude stuff in a way. You got to remember it in a positive way. And I just don't know. And even Cupcake here herself, I'm an African-American female who met Hulk Hogan 20 years ago. He was very kind to me. He even let me touch his pythons. Hey, brother, so I do forgive him. And then for Cupcake, even you saying that, that is just really resonating, because as you know, 4 of the 5 members here on the show are people of color. And
well, I mean, wait a minute, that's not fair. Will has a tan.
Yeah, yes, that's true. We'll hesitate. Yeah, but at the same time, we all come from diverse backgrounds where we're all affected by different things that happen in real life, and we just got to understand of how we got to make sure we just express it in the best way possible. What do you say to that, Crab? Even to what Cupcake said on her remarks.
I think like it's what humans are. No one's perfect. Humanity exists on a spectrum. It will be good and bad in everything that everyone ever will do, have done, or will do in the future. it's all relative. So for me to say, if you want to say legitimately, fuck that guy and go tap dance on his grave, then hey, get your spats on and fly down to Florida and go ahead and do your shuffle. And for some people, for a lot of people, obviously, taking this news to heart and being, for how that feels, it is, that is a thing also. So I don't really care about that. I don't really care about what the internet says about a thing and how they, feel about this. I think in general, though, like, because recency bias is a thing, people do get emotional about things. Nobody really was talking about. I mean, Hulk Hogan wasn't trending, he wasn't making the news, he wasn't doing anything a week ago. And then now that he's passed, it's kind of like, oh no, I'll never get to do whatever I wanted to do with Hulk Hogan again. I'll never see him again. Well, that wasn't a concern last week, so why is it a concern now? It wasn't like he was out there, doing stuff. And the last time we saw him on Raw, he got the bejesus booed out of him.
Oh, opening night, January.
And hey, fair enough. I mean, rightfully so. They got to move on from that shit. So, but as far as that has nothing to do with the historical context of it. Historically, regardless of how you feel about him personally, for whatever reason, yes, Hulk Hogan was a one of one multi-generational talent that a lot of people would put as the first or second entrant on their Mount Rushmore. And I'm not here to debate on whether or not that's just, because that's for you. There are also people that can't put their politics down and need to wear that on the sleeve every single day and go, well, Hogan was a rabid Trump supporter with the My Pillow guy, and he said some also, uncharacteristically, but not so unsurprising, redneck Floridian things, also. Both can be true because humanity allows it. That's the spectrum that we live on. So that's why I will take the historical context and say that if you don't know, or if you think that you know of Hulk Hogan because you've seen him do some things within the last 10 years, I highly recommend you find some AWA stuff. I think that's the best version of Hogan. Obviously, that was 40 years ago. So, a younger Hogan was a better Hogan. But he was also a different wrestler then. A better wrestler, more technically proficient. And I really think that, like, if you want to see Hogan at his best, watch his stuff in Japan, watch the AWA stuff way back when, before he settled into the WWF machine. That's what I choose to remember him for. Yes, I can, it will be an asterisk because of other stuff that happened later on in his life. But honestly, officially, I'm going to say that Hulk Hogan is the guy that I choose to remember from, early 90s, AWA in Japan. And Terry Bollea is the guy that I choose to remember that was a 70-year-old Trump supporter from Tampa. These guys may have intersected at some point, but I don't believe they're the same person. So both of them died. And that's a part of how life has to work out that way. But that's also the thing, too. You're going to start to learn that your heroes may not be the person that aligns with your values. So y'all got in for a rude awakening when The Undertaker and Kane and other people that have made their political motivations and aspirations known over the years. Yeah, it's going to be a rough go of it for a lot of people that wonder how the hell did we get here? But yes, to Hulk, nowhere near my favorite wrestler, but his impact will be absolutely be massive, and no one will ever be able to fill those shoes. They haven't in 25-ish years since he left wrestling full time, and no one's come close. Not The Rock, not Steve Austin, not the internet's favorite wrestler in Japan. There's only one Hogan, for better or worse.
And definitely well said, Crab. And I'll say, for respect of his family, and anybody that's gone through death, either personal or if you're affiliated with these celebrities, because sometimes these celebrities are your idols. They're people that you look up to. They're people that you're heroes. They're people that you model after. So we definitely want to say rest in peace to Hulk, and definitely, for all deaths that took place this week. It's a healing process that families have to go through. I know on SmackDown, they probably do their bell salute for him. But definitely we wish healing on all cases if you were affected by him. And he will be missing some aspects just because of a presence that he had, not in this industry, but in your childhood, your livelihood, and whatever you've done. Let's go to a quick break, and we'll come right back.
Looking to get your brand in front of people who eat, sleep, and breathe entertainment? Big Gold Belt Media is the place to be. We're all about reporting on movies, TV shows, conventions, and everything in between. And we want your brand to be a part of the action. Partnering with us means your sponsorships get featured right in the midst of our content. Plus, we're going to hype you up on all of our social media, connecting you with an audience that loves discovering new things from trusted voices in entertainment. We're easy to find. Just look for us on Big Gold Belt on all your social media platforms. Don't wait, reach out today, and let's start building something amazing together. Your spotlight is waiting here at Big Gold Belt Media, biggoldbelt.com.
And we're back. So let's transition to some wrestling that did take place this weekend. For those of you that may have watched, I saw highlights of it. I did not see the show, but TNA Slammiversary came about this weekend. And one of the biggest takeaways from that show is, of course, we all been talking about for a while now, the merger or the collaboration that we should say between TNA and NXT, not necessarily WWE, the main roster, but NXT. And now you have it where TNA's two top titles, the Impact Women's Championship and their World Heavyweight Championship, are now held by NXT members. Jacy Jayne won her match on NXT, and just Jacy Jayne has been on a tear now. I know she started slow. She's been at NXT about 3-4 years, and now she's got 2 titles. And of course, Trick Williams is still your TNA World Champion. And that brings the question I want to bring to you, Crab. TNA's top 2 titles are now in NXT. Is this a problem for TNA moving forward? What does this say about this, about what's going on here?
Well, we kind of thought about this when we saw that Joe Hendry was popping up on WWE television with the TNA belt and stuff like that. What happens if he loses? Oh, Trick won. My God. I think part of it is it does give TNA exposure because of the fact that Trick Williams will not be TNA champion forever. Mm-hmm. His reign has only been a few months, since like the end of May or something, like Memorial Day, around the time where he won it. And through that time, if you're a fan of Trick Williams, then it would be in your best interest to find where TNA is. If you're a fan of Jacy Jayne or you want to know what's going to happen with that, then hey, it would be your best interest to see where she goes. Now, I think on the other side of that is, if you're a TNA fan, you kind of got to be wondering, well, who gets those titles back? What is TNA's counterattack, and when will they do that? I don't see this as like a hostile takeover of TNA, which kind of makes you wonder if that is the case. Well, shit, if they already have their top 2 belts, then what happens if the Hardys defect to NXT or something like that? What happens? Yep. Because they're tag team champions, I believe. What happens if we start seeing X Division matches on NXT? What if NXT just absorbs TNA? Yep. Now, that would be insane. I don't think that that's the case, but I do think this creates a lot of interest in prospects, because on the other side of it, TNA is going to have to get their titles back at some point. And that is what it is. At some point, this partnership will have to end amicably, but there is a story to tell. And as long as there's a story to tell, I'm all for it. So I think this is good for both parties. There's a lot of cross action. And you know what? At what was that? Slammiversary, they had a hell of a crowd in New York.
They really did. It really did.
You know, they were trending a little bit. They got some buzz a little bit. So I'm actually not mad at the fact that TNA put on a pretty damn good show and made some news, you know, made some waves and are still relevant. So, you know, good on them. And this is a product of that. So I'm really not mad at it.
What's interesting for me is like, as I'm literally on the TNA website right now, just looking at their roster, and I'm just seeing how many former NXT/WWE, you know, superstars are on there. And it's just interesting that when you talk about this merger, the ones that are not coming back to NXT to show up for different matches. Of course, Trick and JC James are the big headlines of their top champions on their page. But when you think about so many talent like Nick Nemeth and everybody that you would think, oh, this is really a merger, why didn't they come on? It's like very interesting that some people are really staying off that NXT circuit of how they're building only certain people. Like if they want to pluck these individuals to come to NXT or like you said to uproot TNA, I think that's just very interesting to me as they're doing these matches or even just the visits that are taking place. Even Santino is going to have a match against Ethan Page next week.
Yeah, so like that. So that's, I mean, it's interesting. It does keep the storyline going. Now the question is, of course, if you are NXT and you have something that TNA wants, and eventually they will get their titles back.
Yep.
Now, really, the question is, where does NXT need TNA to keep things interesting? On the other hand, you know, the focus has kind of been on TNA being the little engine that could and spicing it up. Realistically, for NXT, knowing that TNA, let's say this thing does go away and they phase it out, you know, within the next, you know, couple weeks, couple months, and they just go back to be an insular NXT product feeder for the main roster, and that's it. What is that? Does that lower NXT stock a little bit? As like, yeah, sure, they're a third brand, but compared to TNA, yeah, they're a legitimate third brand, and they have some notoriety on themselves, and good for them. But then now you take TNA away, do they just go back to being sunned by the main roster and just being little brother the entire time? And it becomes the game of, well, which we had a big pay-per-view. Who's the call-up now?
That's interesting you said it, because when you just said that, the only person I just wanted to image and think about right now is Trick Williams. So let's talk about him for a second, right? Sure. So he's had the NXT title. He's had now the TNA World title. So this is the first time that you could say maybe, is that TNA title worth more than the NXT title? When you think about his accolades and what he's done, is he worth more than Obafemi? Because when he goes, because Trick Williams will end up on the main roster at some point. We just don't know when.
Obafemi.
Yeah. Would you say that when he goes to the main roster, his gimmick is say, I'm already better than you because I've already been a world champion before, and now I'm going to just try to take over where I can be the first WWE superstar that had the world heavyweight title, TNA title, and NXT title? That could be his gimmick, but he wouldn't have that to uplift him to where he is if it wasn't for this storyline. And that's why I think you make an interesting point with that.
I would agree with that if the main roster respected other wrestling promotions equally. Because you could argue that Cody should have said the same thing when he got back there, and of course they shied away from or completely downplayed his AEW run. Oh, you were with that t-shirt company and you came back home, good for you. Now you can start really wrestling, blah, blah, blah. And Trick Williams shows up, like, hey, I'm a two-time NXT champion, TNA champion. Oh, okay, so what? Welcome to the big leagues, kid. And that's kind of how, even after Vince, they've kind of treated other promotions, which is why the TNA NXT kind of, I was going to say merger, but their program together has been so meaningful for both sides because we haven't really seen this before since. Well, we haven't seen this in WWE literally since Hogan wrestling in Japan in the 90s. They bring it full circle, and now we have champions of another company with their belt on WWE television in a meaningful way. Not just, oh, that's the champion of another company in the Royal Rumble. Hey, here's the belt, puts it aside and goes to get thrown out of the ring. Or, oh, it's Joe Hendry. He's the TNA champion at the time.
Yep.
Cool. We never see the belt again, and then he gets beat up by Randy Orton. So yes, if WWE respected other promotions and gave credence to other promotions' belts, then I would say, yeah, then that'd be the first thing you say. But since that's not how they do that, he's going to have to start at the bottom like everybody else and be, Trick Williams because he's Trick Williams, not because he's relevant anywhere else. With that said, though, that's why like the focus has got to be on both of them, NXT and TNA.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, well, damn, who really needs who here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as the longer this goes on, does that pendulum switch back and forth between the two parties? At first, it was, oh, this is a total win for TNA. The only thing they got to do is show up. But then now that we've seen that they have an established roster, they have an established audience. They had 7,000 in UBS for their big pay-per-view Slammiversary, and it was a pretty damn good show by all accounts.
Mm-hmm.
TNA is arguably as hot as it's been in a decade, and then now we're seeing NXT stars to spice up the pot. Well, now the pendulum's kind of swinging their way, and you're kind of wondering, well, what's on the table for NXT?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what that answer is because, well, Obafemi is their champion. They don't really need Trick Williams. And that's is TNA like a pocket universe that they're using because they really don't have room on their main roster for anybody. And I think that's kind of what it seems to be for right now. No disrespect to TNA at all, but it just kind of seems that like, well, we need to continue to elevate the people that we have in NXT. Let us just put these guys, let's separate these guys and put them over in the TNA pocket universe until we're ready to call them to the main roster.
Indeed. And I'll end this part, by saying this is something I'm interested to see how it builds and continues to go. But I don't think it put a damper on Slammiversary at all. I think it made it very intriguing for the show. So for those that made comments saying, man, this is terrible, TNA is going to go down because they lost their top titles, I would disagree. And I think you would probably say the same thing, right? Because it didn't put a damper on the show. It just made it more interesting about what will they do next. And you made a great segment about that pendulum of which way it's going to go, because in that pendulum, you want to, toggle back and forth about, okay, I'm going to let you dance a little bit and lead TNA. Okay, now it's an NXT turn, but you want to make sure both profit at the same time. But you don't want to make a mistake in that storyline process where the payoff then flattens out. And that will be detrimental on both sides. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of the thing about wrestling and going with storylines, going with bookings is, when do you pivot?
Yep.
When do you, how do you let a thing react too long? Because
that's why the Bloodline's been so successful, because they know how to pivot at certain times to build, or maybe separate it a little bit and then bring it back full circle.
Well, right. And to some degree, I agree with that. But to the other degree, it's kind of like, well, no matter what they pivot from, and then two, realistically, the Bloodline storyline has been the same storyline for 2 years now.
Yeah, true.
It's been, whoever is trying to catch this damn necklace and they are going to absolute war over it. Jesus H. Like, okay, well, we it's pretty, but and they go back to it. With TNA, it is kind of like the same with the NXT storyline crossover. It is kind of the same thing. At what point do you pivot away from it?
Mm-hmm.
Because now that we know that it's here and that it can be a thing, I think you have to pivot away from it at some point, close the door, and then give people an opportunity to miss it and then bring it back. Because now that there's continuity there, it's nothing for, honestly, just steal the Forbidden Door formula from AEW and just say that, after they're done with this long-term programs that they have with TNA, NXT and TNA have together, close the door, bring it back for a month once a year.
Yeah.
It's Forbidden Door season. Obviously, you can't call it that. But all of a sudden, we start seeing TNA guys show up. We start seeing NXT guys show up. It's a month-long program leading up to both big shows. Hell, a 2-night event. You have Slammiversary on a Sunday night, and then the night before that, at a different building on the other side of town, you have whatever TakeOver. I know it's not TakeOver anymore, but whatever their big NXT show is. And it doesn't even have to be surrounded, bookend on like SummerSlam, Survivor Series weekend. It can be its own thing, completely within itself. It's Forbidden Door season, for lack of a better phrase, between NXT and TNA. That's what you're going to get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And shifting to our last topic of the day, we could say probably alone, now correct me if I'm wrong, Crab, on SmackDown, Raw, and NXT alone. I didn't get a chance to watch AEW last night, but the last 3 WWE televised promotions or events, it's been women leading the show and women stealing the show. As far as how they're building up their characters, the events that we have, of course, this is building off Evolution. But can we say, is women's wrestling now the must-see division for any wrestling promotion? And not only that, I know NXT has been doing this for the last couple of weeks. They've been building up stars to make multiple storylines, going for multiple titles and things of that nature, and kind of spotlighting them, like with Jada Parker, what she's doing, Stephanie Fakur on Raw. It's just been so many things that WWE is doing to try to build up women's wrestling. But even the AEW with Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné and what they did, and they had a great match, a week and a half ago. But do you think women's wrestling is now the must-see division? I mean, we're not trying to make this male versus female dominance, but the way that the women are building up their storylines and stories and characters and what they're doing in ring, it's been very impressive. Do you think that's what we're leading towards now?
The short answer is no. Not because of the fact that women can't do it or whatever. I just don't look at it that way, in a sense that, like, you're watching the wrestling show, but you gotta watch this particular part. I think that AEW does a better job of providing a wrestling buffet.
Yep.
If you want to see a particular style of wrestling, more than likely AEW has a little bit of that for you. I just think that the women's division is arguably in the best place that it's ever been. Thank you, Stephanie. Well, she invented women's wrestling.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
But I think it's in the greatest spot that it's ever been, largely because of Toni Storm, largely because of Athena, who's really just been waiting in the wings to just do exactly what she's going to do.
Pause for that. Do you think Athena is trying to not copy, but what Naomi's doing now in WWE, that could have been Athena when she was with WWE, or she can build that now where she is in AEW?
I think, but that's also, like, contextually, that's a loaded question, because it's not that anybody can't be or do anything at any point in time anywhere. It's just that if you're given the opportunity to, then what? And that's kind of where AEW is made its name as the wrestlers, promotion, because you have the creative control, the freedom, the reign to do what you think is best, obviously within reason nowadays, because the inmates were running the asylum for the first couple of years and then COVID hit. But the point is that, like, we're willing to take more chances, take more risk with a gimmick if you believe in it, which can be a good thing. But then if you ask a guy like Jack Evans in AEW, that was a bad thing, because he was used to being coached. He was used to being managed a little bit better, working with producers a little bit more. And, we've also seen, well, wait a minute. How the hell is this the place that showcases creativity, but you can't find work for this guy?
Yeah.
And, this person isn't injured and hasn't been injured. They just haven't been on TV, Ricky Starks and Miro.
Yep.
This person isn't injured. They just haven't been on TV, or they pop up in Ring of Honor and nobody notices. So, obviously you can sing the praises of that and go like, damn, that's so awesome to see Swerve get the accolades that he finally deserves, even though he's been he has the platform. He's always been the guy, but now he has the platform to do what he's been doing 10 years since he first popped up on someone's television.
Yep.
But then on the other hand, it's like, well, that video game gimmick with Miro absolutely sucked.
Ooh.
I really hope that this wasn't just him being led to his own, left to his own devices. Now you could say same thing with WWE. They're a lot less rigid now.
Yeah.
But does that mean that they would have the same creative control? Well, Athena back then would not have had that same creative control when she was back in WWE back then. I have no idea. I don't never understand why she's been in Ring of Honor for so long.
Yep.
Maybe that's her choice too. Maybe she said, you know what, this is the schedule that I want to work, and I'm good with being a big fish leading a small pond. But for whatever reason, we're here now. Now, AEW has a different structure than WWE too. WWE has a network with all leading all the way down to TNA and NXT, including the main roster. AEW really doesn't have that like infrastructure set up. So you kind of got to get in where you got to get in. And if you don't, then you don't work TV.
Yep.
Oops, they don't do house shows. So it's a different dynamic. I do think that the focus is on women a lot more. Obviously, recency bias. We had Evolution. Toni Storm has been killing it for AEW.
Phenomenal.
And having arguably her best year ever wrestling. Hell of a storyline. And then, of course, other big names popping up on other places, stuff like that. And then, of course, WWE, having their, getting some people back. Becky Lynch coming back, Asuka coming back. Io Sky is doing her damnedest thing.
Give it to Lyra Valkyria. It's like she can't put on a bad match now.
And then, the Bird Lady's doing well. Lash Legend actually doesn't suck anymore. So
hey, that's my girl.
So that kind of came, not out of nowhere, but damn, she's really coming to her own. So top to bottom, they've been doing a hell of a job as well. So is it like a focus on women, or are the women getting the ball and running with it, or is it just the cream rises to the top, to quote Randy Savage?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a little bit of all of it, but mostly the third one. People gravitate towards the things that they like, and if they like something, give them more of that, and because that's what wrestling business has always been about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who you are in any business. If the fans have responded to a thing, then goddamn it, that's what we're going to run with.
If there's anything that you want to see the women, let's say in the next 6 months, because right now we're beyond halfway the year. This year is already flying by. We're curving into 2026 before you know it. Right. Is there anything that you want to see the women do within the next 6 months that says, in order to take your wrestling, this is for any promotion, in order to take your wrestling and your career to the next level, you should do this? What is that in your opinion right now?
Well, again, another loaded question, because if you are a knockdown, drag out, deathmatch women's wrestler, that will never be mainstream. If you are a technically proficient Japanese, women's wrestler, then there are only a handful of places that you can go before you bump your head against the ceiling. I think overall, like if we're going to speak of just broadly about women's wrestling, more synergy. Dallas was a big weekend for AEW, had a massive show, and then they had the Dynamite and Collision in Arlington for a long time, moved on to Chicago for a little while, and then moving on to Philadelphia for a little while. But Dallas, all in that whole weekend, Super Card of Honor was that weekend, and the regular AEW shows. But also, Tokyo Joshi Pro had a show in Dallas, in the city of Dallas, I believe. Also that weekend, I think it was the Sunday before, at like noon, before NXT, Evolution went on.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see more of a presence from other promotions from around the world, take more of an interest in the U.S. Selfishly, because I live here. Please just come to the East Coast. I will buy everything. Give me all the merch. Give me all the matches. Please come. Obviously, that is a tough ask because we're asking the Japanese to come 13 hours halfway around the world from here, from Tokyo to New York, Philly, Boston, DC, Atlanta. That may be a logistical nightmare for them, but it doesn't have to be them. The Mexicans come through, bring the English, bring the French, bring the Moroccans. I want to see more of everyone around the world. Yes, the people that I know and like, more Mizuki, more Mei Saruga, more Maki Ito, more Yu before she retires, more Yuna Mizumori, but I also want to see more wrestlers that I don't know from Mexico, from Chile, from Brazil, from Bolivia, from Central Africa, from anywhere on the moon. I want to see just more wrestling live, basically, selfishly, but just more wrestling from just everybody, and that doesn't have to be a women's thing, because there are a lot of talent everywhere, and not everybody's going to get a chance to shine in the spotlight, but just more synergy. I really wish that TJPW show were advertised a lot better, or maybe had a better working relationship with AEW. They came, Stardom didn't. Kind of showed you what you need to know, but just more. Give us more.
Absolutely. And as we get ready to wrap up the show, of course, we do more than just wrestling talk. We always like to end each show with some of the things that's coming up this weekend in the world of movies, TV, comics, whatever your shtick is. Of course, our boss is up in San Diego right now because they got Comic-Con going on right now. So Comic-Con is going to be huge this weekend. Of course, we all know that Fantastic Four is dropping tonight for theaters, and I'm going to see it tomorrow. But Crab, what is on your radar for things to catch and see outside of the main ones that everybody knows about? Some sleepers that people may not realize that's there that we could check out.
So yes, Fantastic Four is out this weekend. IMAX, Dolby Cinema, and all that too. Locally here in DC, the Air and Space Museum at the National Mall, the one downtown, their IMAX is reopening this weekend with Fantastic Four.
Nice. Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because the screen, at least before their renovation, that was closed for about 2 years, maybe earlier than that because of COVID.
Yeah,
but it was closed. It's been closed for a minute, actually. Their screen before the renovations, and I don't know what it is after, was 70 feet tall and 90 feet wide. It's a big ass screen because IMAX. So I actually plan on seeing Fantastic Four there this weekend. So I was going to rush to see it tonight. Actually going to pay some money and see it on the biggest screen I can. Hopefully it's good, but that is a thing. So selfishly, that's happening this weekend. There's a couple other movies that I thought were interesting. One called Oh Hi. It's about this girl and it's this couple that go on a date, and it's like their first date. And the dude tells her, like, hey, you're cool and all, but I don't necessarily see this going any further. So she does what any rational person would do. They kind of get into it, and she pulls off the handcuffs and chains him to the bed and kind of says, well, I'm either going to kill you or you're going to love me, but let me prove it to you that you love me. It's a dark comedy, but I hear good things about it. So I will be seeing that this weekend. Last weekend I did see I Know What You Did Last Summer. And after sitting on it for about a week, it's better than what you think it is. Because the original movie isn't that great.
It's not.
So
classic 90s horror movie, though.
Right. Realistically, though, it's a good sequel to an average movie. And if people are going to say, like, oh, my God, this movie's terrible. Well, I mean, the first one wasn't great. And now that the main characters from that movie are 30 years older, now we're kind of like the new kids are doing the same thing, and it's a good remake, and it's fine. It's fine. Eddington was out last week also. That was really interesting. But yeah, the big thing is Fantastic Four. That's inescapable. One other thing, Nezha Part 2, Chinese movie. One of my favorite movies of the year. It will be coming in English to the U.S. August 22nd. It's coming to IMAX and everything like that. It's the biggest animated movie of all time, made over $2 billion US.
God.
It is one of the best stories I've ever seen, animated or not. It's an instant classic. If you have a chance to see it, when it comes closer to release time, I'll definitely be up on that a little bit more. But I'm very excited to see this for the 4th time in theaters, and this time in English. So Nezha Part 2, mark your calendars, August 22nd.
Nice. Thank you, Crab, as always. And once again, please make sure you check out. You can also check out our website or any of our handles on our different social media platforms where we have reviews of different things, interviews with the actors and actresses of these events. And once again, I know our boss, 2 Chainz, is going to be dropping content left and right, live from San Diego, going on for Comic-Con, because I know this weekend they got their big media shows and everything that's going to have some reveals and everything, just like last year. Let's see what comes out this year, if there's any surprises, but make sure you stay tuned to that. On behalf of me, your boy Silly Sellis and Crab, we're going to be out. Once again, you can check us out on any one of our main platforms. Thank you for joining us today. And shout out to Cupcake once again for always, just dropping in some comments and knowledge to us. We appreciate you and the rest of our fans, that listen to us every single week. We will definitely see.
You know what? Also, shout out to Cupcake. Also, shout out to the Iron Sheik. If you know, you know.
Yes, I did see that too. And if you do know, you do know. But we'll leave it at that. Just go check it out. But we appreciate you guys. We'll be back here right here next week. August is right around the corner. It's gonna be the last Thursday of July. Summer's gone, y'all. But we'll be here next week live right here, ready for you, talking about wrestling content, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. And if you're in San Diego, that'll be 5 Pacific. So maybe as you ride home from work, you can definitely listen to us on any of our platforms. On behalf of us, we will see you on next time.
All I really need, that